Now, this is not how the progress curve works, but it's how we think it works. We think that all we need is some motivation in the beginning. We have our goal, we visualize it, and it's this beautiful, nice curve all the way up. But we all know that that is not the case at all. And as you can see from this next one, it's actually a little bit bumpy. It's a bit more like this. But overall, as long as we keep going on some level, it is going up. There is a difference. So yes, if you look right at the beginning, the motivation is there to start, but we always tend to plateau and dip. And this is really natural. But what happens is we tend to beat ourselves up at this point and we tend to spiral. So one thing to take away here is just keep this as a visual image in your mind to know that this is true. This is what happened. What we have to do is when we have that dip, often we need to pull back on our motivation, but there's another way of doing it than just motivation. Oh, sorry, Karen. Yeah, don't worry, this is all being recorded anyway, so we can send it to you and you can catch up. So when we feel it's like this, we sometimes think, why bother? We sometimes think, if I keep dropping and falling back, is there any point? And that's what Bibi was saying about tying a real meaning to this. So I want to give you an example. So at the end of last year, I took some time out and I stepped back and I had a scan and was thinking about what was working both professionally and personally and what wasn't. And I realized I wanted to exercise more. And I think this is a real common goal for a lot of people. But setting goals for, doing something 3 to 4 times a week to exercise or attend a class was really difficult for me because and it's different reasons for everybody, but for me, having a child, most of your evening is tied up with books and bed, and by the time that's done, you're just exhausted, and then you self-deprecate that you've not done it again. And morning times are go, 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 daytimes are for work, and it just feels like, well, I don't even know. But from experience, I know that it really impacts me positively when I do. So I just kind of racking my brain and thinking, how can I set some goals that really work for me and get my blood moving because I know that it impacts me positively, professionally and personally. So what I did was I decided to do something that felt manageable, but not pressurizing. I think the pressure I was giving myself was what was putting me off in the first place, because sometimes the little things we think are not enough. So we always set these huge goals and then we either don't start them because they just feel overwhelming, or we start them and when we have the drop, it just feels way too big to get back on track. So I decided to call it something different completely in the first place. I called it moving my body. I just want to move my body every day. And it was a non-negotiable that I set up. And um, I did start to fall off the wagon about 5 or 6 weeks in, like naturally, which I'll come to. But that word sounded different to me. It sounded more supportive than pressurizing. And it could have been anything. It could have been walking to the shop. It could have been doing 10 squats quickly. It could have been 10 minutes Pilates online. It was easy for me to do and it wasn't boring because I mixed it up and it was like, okay, well, what shall I do today? It could have been just jumping around the room with my daughter. To me, it was tick, done. I didn't overanalyze or judge myself on how long I did it. I did 15 minutes in the gym. I didn't care that I walked in and walked out after 15 minutes. It was just tick, done. So I was hitting these little dopamine goals every day. And when I did naturally plateau and find it boring because we've been saying motivation is not enough, it was so easy for me to get back on track because it was so easy to get going in the first place because it wasn't so big. And I kept this image in my mind and I was like, this is normal. And I was able to then continue back up on track. It was later that I started to make it more specific, which we'll come to, and a little bit more challenging. But it was the habit that I needed to get going in the first place to build my self-esteem and prove that I actually can stick to something.
So Nick, I love that because what really sticks is the fact that you knew your end goal was exercise, you reframed it because exercise just didn't give you that kind of volition or desire. You reframed it to movement, you wanted the blood flow. So again, your brain has now engaged in something that actually means something to you. And then what you did was you reframed it in terms of small steps, of chunking it down. And the thing is, the brain loves small wins. And so by you doing that, as you said, when you came to a bit of a plateau or a dip, it was easy to come back up again because your brain thought, oh, I know that a small win is really easy to achieve. So our brain is amazing, everyone. It works, constantly for us, and it believes it's always doing the right things for us. I mean, we receive millions of pieces of information every single minute of the day. And what it does for us is it deletes what it believes to be unimportant so that it makes our storage retrieval a lot easier. It distorts information so that it fits our mental model and our how we view the world, our perspective, and that's so that we can understand easier. And then it also generalizes things. So we've got a pool of understanding to again make things easier for us. So if you noticed the language that I was just using there, the brain works for us to make things easier. It enjoys easiness. So it avoids uncertainty. So if you don't have a goal that's specific or you don't know where you're going with that goal, it's going to probably go, do I actually want to do this? It will avoid overload. If the goal just seems too big, what do you mean you want me to exercise 6 times a day? We don't, or 6 times a week. We don't do it once at the moment. It will get overwhelmed. It will just be too much to achieve. And so therefore that's where you chunk it down. So what it avoids as well is effort with no clear reward. So unless you've got it tied to that purposeful, meaningful goal at the end, it's going to say, well, okay, I can go to the gym 6 times a week, but what's in it for me or you? So you've just got to remember that the brain doesn't like effort. It likes to be able to support you, but it needs to see clarity, it needs to see control, and it needs those small wins as well. So if a goal feels vague, it feels too big, the brain's just going to delay or avoid it. So Katie, where you said it's you that possibly stops yourself, this is why there's that internal conflict of you saying you want something, but the brain going, that's just too difficult to achieve. So when we reframe it, like Nick did with calling it movement rather than exercise, it will automatically go, oh, okay, I can do that. So it's not that we need more discipline. We don't need to be harder on ourselves. We don't need to hear that inner voice. We just need to understand how to design the goal in a better way. We need it to be meaningful, and we need to make it sure that, the brain is working with us, not fighting against us.
Yeah.